The blood on my truck was still wet when my son placed the keys on my kitchen table and asked me to pay for his wife's crime. It was 12:17 in the morning. Ryan stood across from me, while Lauren remained near the door, both hands wrapped around her purse. Outside, beneath the porch light, the passenger side of my pickup was crushed. One headlamp was broken, and something dark clung beneath the wheel well. Ryan pushed the keys toward me. "Tell the police you were driving, Dad." I waited for him to admit this was a terrible joke. He didn't. Lauren looked at me. "I have a career," she whispered. "You're retired. Your house is paid off. You have nothing left to lose." 4 years earlier, I had buried my wife. Apparently, they had decided that being 62, widowed and quiet, meant my life was already over. Ryan leaned closer. "Lauren could lose everything. Who do you think the police are going to believe?" I said nothing. He mistook my silence for surrender. That was his first mistake. Please, before we continue, make sure to subscribe to the channel and let us know in the comments where you are listening from today. My name is Thomas Mercer. That afternoon, he had borrowed my pickup because Lauren's SUV was being repaired. He promised to return it before dinner. Instead, they arrived after midnight, carrying my keys and a story they wanted me to wear like a prison uniform. "Start from the beginning," I said. Ryan pulled out a chair but did not sit. "There was an accident." "What kind?" Lauren closed her eyes. "A man stepped into the road." "Were you driving?" She nodded once. "Where is he?" Neither answered. Rain tapped against the window. "Where is the man, Lauren?" She panicked, Ryan said. "It was dark. He appeared from nowhere." "Did you stop?" Lauren stared at the floor. Ryan answered for her. "We left. Somewhere in the city, an injured man might have been lying alone on wet pavement, while my son stood in my kitchen deciding whose life was easier to sacrifice." "Did you call an ambulance?" Lauren tightened her grip on the purse. "That isn't the problem we need to solve right now. It is the only problem that matters." His expression hardened. "Dad, don't make this emotional. A stranger had been struck with my truck and abandoned, yet my son was warning me not to become emotional." Ryan sat down. Lauren was expecting a promotion. A criminal charge could cost her job and their home. "And your solution is for me to confess?" I asked. "You probably wouldn't go to prison," Ryan replied. "Maybe probation. We would pay for your lawyer." "You already checked the punishment?" Lauren glanced at him. Ryan paused. "I'm making an educated guess. Panic rarely arrives carrying legal estimates." I folded my hands. "Tell me exactly what I'm supposed to say." Relief crossed his face. They believed I had agreed. Ryan explained that I had supposedly taken the truck out alone, struck the man on a dark road, panicked, and driven home. I was to say I called him afterward because I was frightened and confused. "Keep it simple," he said. "More details mean more questions. When do I tell them?" "When the police call you in the morning." The answer came too quickly. I looked directly at him. "Why would they call me?" Ryan froze. Lauren stopped breathing for a second. "The truck is registered to you," he said. "They'll trace it eventually." "Eventually isn't tomorrow morning." He stood and reached for the keys. I covered them with my hand. "The truck stays here. I need to get it repaired." "No." "Then let me clean it before anyone sees it." That sentence removed my final doubt. They were not asking for help after a terrible mistake. They were trying to erase evidence. Ryan guided Lauren toward the door, and neither said goodnight. After their car disappeared, I walked outside without touching the damage. The dash camera was mounted behind the windshield, but its access door hung open. The memory card was gone. Ryan believed removing it had erased the truth. What he did not know was that my camera saved emergency recordings twice. And judging by his certainty that the police would call me, the missing card was not the first part of his plan. I left the truck exactly where it was and went back inside. For several seconds, I stared at the keys Ryan had pushed toward me. They no longer looked like a request for help. They looked like evidence. I took my work phone from a locked drawer in the den and called Lieutenant Elena Brooks. Brooks answered on the fourth ring. "Mercer, is this about the task force?" "No. My personal truck was involved in a collision tonight." Her voice sharpened. "Were you driving?" "No." My daughter-in-law admitted she was. My son asked me to claim responsibility. I told her about the injured man, the damage, and the missing memory card. Brooks asked whether I had moved the truck or touched the passenger side. No. Good. Don't touch it, don't call Ryan, and don't let anyone near it. I'll contact the local supervisor. Elena, there's something else. Ryan said the police would call me in the morning. He sounded certain. She went quiet. I heard a keyboard. Let me check something. The call ended. 11 minutes later, my personal phone vibrated. Ryan had sent a message. Stick to what we discussed. I read it twice. We had discussed his plan, but I had agreed to nothing. A second message arrived. Don't destroy Lauren's life over one mistake. He never asked whether the man was alive. He never apologized. His only concern was keeping me inside the story he had created. I photographed both messages, backed them up, and waited. Brooks called 20 minutes later. Tom, someone gave your name to the police before Ryan reached your house. I sat. Who? Ryan. He reported the collision shortly after it happened. He told them you called him from home, confessed that you had struck someone, and asked him what to do. The kitchen seemed to shrink around me. Ryan had not come to ask whether I would protect Lauren. He had already told the police I was guilty. The conversation at my table was meant to secure my cooperation after the lie was moving. Did he claim he saw me driving? No. He said you confessed by phone. The investigator needs your statement. Tell him I'll cooperate completely. Verify my location confidentially, I said. No favors because of my badge. The investigator called minutes later. I confirmed that the pickup belonged to me and stated clearly that I had not been driving. I repeated only what I had seen and heard. Lauren's admission, Ryan's instructions, the damaged truck, his certainty that police would contact me, and the missing memory card. Why would your son name you? He asked. I know what he wants me to believe. I won't guess about his intentions. Facts first, anger later. Before ending the call, I asked, has the man been found? The investigator paused. Yes. His name is Walter Briggs. He's 67. He's alive, but his injuries are serious. Relief weakened my knees. Then the rest landed. Walter had been found alone beside the road. An unidentified woman had called 911, reported an injured pedestrian, and disconnected without giving her name. Lauren might have summoned help before fleeing. That never excused her, but it exposed two different choices. Someone cared enough to call an ambulance, while someone else cared enough to steal my camera card. After the call, I returned to the kitchen. Ryan's keys still lay beneath the light. My son had used my name before he knew whether I would surrender it. If Brooks had not checked the report, I might have entered a police interview believing I still had a choice. Then my phone lit up again. This time Ryan was calling. I let it ring. A voicemail followed. Dad, don't say anything until we talk. Lauren is terrified, and confused people can make everything worse. I listened twice. He was already preparing to describe me as confused. First he had taken my name. Now he was reaching for my credibility. The lie had begun before he entered my house, and it was still growing after he left. The only question was how far my son had already gone to make sure I could not escape it. I never slept that night. At 7 the next morning, 2 investigators arrived with cameras and evidence bags. They photographed the broken lamp, the scrape along the passenger door, and the dark fibers beneath the wheel well. I showed them the empty memory card slot and explained the camera's cloud feature. Ordinary footage disappeared quickly, but a sudden impact triggered a second upload. Ryan knew about the card. He did not know about the backup. We opened the account while a technician documented every step. One file remained. It lasted 23 seconds. Rain crossed the windshield. The road was dark, and Lauren's hands were visible on the wheel. Her face appeared in the mirror just before the truck jolted. The image froze seconds later. The investigators copied the file and arranged to tow the truck. Does Ryan know about the cloud account? One asked. No. Keep it that way. Less than an hour later, Ryan called. He never asked about Walter. I need to pick up the truck. You can't. The police are examining it. Silence followed. You called them? They were already looking for my truck, Ryan. You made sure of that. He ignored the answer. Let me repair it before the insurance company turns this into a disaster. A man is in the hospital. The paint isn't the disaster, Ryan exhaled. The passenger light isn't that bad. Most of the damage is cosmetic. The road was dark, so nobody could have seen much anyway. Which road? I asked. The line went quiet. The one where it happened. Have you been there? No. Lauren told me. The answer came too fast. She told you nobody could see the passenger side? You're twisting my words. I'm repeating them. His voice hardened. Dad, don't let your pride destroy 2 lives. There are 3 lives in this conversation. You keep forgetting Walter's. Ryan hung up. I documented the call and notified the investigator. 26 minutes later, his sedan entered my driveway. He got out alone and walked toward the porch as though he still had the right to enter whenever he pleased. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. Where are the keys? He asked. Inside. Give them to me. No. His eyes moved toward the windows. We need to talk privately. We can talk here. He looked past me at the truck. The tow operator had not arrived yet. You don't understand what Lauren could lose. I understand what you asked me to lose. His jaw tightened. Are you recording me? Should I be? Ryan surveyed the porch and noticed the security camera above the garage. Fear crossed his face before turning into anger. I came here to protect this family. Then tell the truth. You think the truth fixes anything? No. It decides who pays for it. Ryan headed toward his car. Halfway there, he changed direction and approached the pickup. He stopped beside the driver's door, peered through the glass, and raised his eyes toward the dash camera. Then he tested the handle. It was locked. What are you looking for? I called. He stepped away. Nothing. Then why did you touch the door? He drove away without answering. I opened the exterior camera archive. I saved the clip in 2 places and forwarded it to the investigator. 5 minutes later, he called. Did Ryan know the memory card was missing? I never told him. Did you mention the backup? No. The investigator paused. Good. Don't contact him again. Through the window, I watched the tow truck enter my driveway. Ryan had returned because he believed the vehicle still contained something capable of exposing him. The cloud clip proved Lauren was driving. His behavior suggested the missing card contained something worse. As the pickup was lifted onto the tow bed, I remembered his words. The road was dark. He had described the scene like a man who had stood there, not one who had heard about it later. Ryan had tried to make me the driver. Now I was beginning to suspect he had been much closer to Walter that night than anyone knew. Ryan had spent years telling people I was retired. I had never corrected him, because the truth was safer when fewer people knew it. I was still a sworn detective assigned to a regional autocrime task force, and for the previous 18 months I had been working under the name Tom Ward. The men we investigated stole vehicles, altered identification numbers, forged titles, and moved expensive parts through repair shops that looked legitimate from the street. They watched for young officers, unfamiliar cars, and anyone asking clever questions. They rarely noticed a gray-haired widower complaining about a transmission. At 62, I had become invisible to exactly the people we needed to watch. Ryan knew none of that. He knew I sometimes did consulting. He never asked why the work required irregular hours, why I carried 2 phones, or why certain calls made me leave family dinners without explanation. He knew only the version of my life that was useful to him. An older man with a paid-off house, a spare truck, and enough savings to rescue his son. The night Lauren struck Walter, I had been inside a warehouse office 40 miles away, wearing a concealed transmitter while 3 suspects discussed a shipment of stolen SUVs. My location was documented by entry cameras, surveillance teams, encrypted radio traffic, and 6 officers monitoring my conversations. I had the strongest alibi imaginable. I also had one I could not casually reveal. By noon, Brooks asked me to meet at the task force office. She waited inside a windowless room with our commander, Daniel Price, and an attorney from the county prosecutor's office. A folder rested on the table. Price did not waste time. "We can verify you were on authorized duty when the collision occurred," he said. "The local investigator will be told you could not have been driving. How much do they need to know?" "For now, only the time window and confirmation from command." The attorney opened the folder. If Ryan continues accusing you, his defense counsel may challenge that confirmation. They could demand records, testimony, or a hearing. We would fight to protect operational details, but we cannot promise your identity stays sealed. I thought about the warehouse. Men inside that organization knew Tom Ward as a lonely buyer with cash and weak judgment. If they learned I was Thomas Mercer, the operation would collapse. Worse, 2 cooperating witnesses had trusted us because we promised to protect their involvement. Exposure could place them in danger. Can the local case proceed without using my assignment? I asked. Possibly, the attorney said. The cloud video removes you as the driver in practical terms. But Ryan already put your confession into a police report. If he repeats it under oath, we need a lawful way to establish that his story is impossible. Price leaned forward. You could step away and let us verify only what becomes necessary. It sounded reasonable, but I heard what he was offering. Protection from the consequences of Ryan's lie, purchased with uncertainty about my own name. No special treatment, I said. Follow the same procedure you would use for anyone else. Brooks studied me. That procedure may end your field assignment. I understand. I had spent years believing protection was the purest form of fatherhood. Now my son was betting his freedom on the belief that I would protect him even when the price was my own. That afternoon, Brooks called. The commander had provided a sealed certification confirming that I was on duty elsewhere. It contained no undercover name, location, or operational detail. The investigator accepted it provisionally and removed me from consideration as the driver. Provisionally? I asked. It clears you for now, Brooks said. But if Ryan challenges it or claims we're protecting one of our own, the prosecutor may need more. I looked through the kitchen window at the empty space where my truck had been. Ryan's lie had forced 2 investigations to touch. The hit-and-run case involving my family, and the undercover operation involving men who could become violent, if they learned who I was. The more desperately Ryan defended his story, the more of my real life might have to be exposed to disprove it. My son believed he had chosen an old man with nothing left to lose. In reality, he had chosen the one person whose alibi could destroy his lie instantly, but proving it in public might cost far more than either of us understood. After Brooks ended the call, I remained at the kitchen table with Diane's empty chair across from me. For years, I had blamed Ryan's entitlement on adulthood arriving too easily. That afternoon, I finally admitted I had helped make it easy. At 28, he buried himself beneath credit card debt after furnishing a condominium he could not afford. I paid most of it before Diane discovered the transfer. I still remembered her standing in this kitchen with the bank statement in her hand. You paid his debt again. The interest was destroying him, I said. That isn't what I asked. Diane had a way of removing every excuse from a sentence without raising her voice. He's our son. I know exactly who he is, Tom. I'm worried you don't know who you're teaching him to become. I told her parents were supposed to help their children. She placed the statement on the table. Help should make him stronger. Every time you erase a consequence, you make him weaker and call it love. I was angry because part of me knew she was right. Still, I continued. Every promise to repay sounded sincere. After Diane died, helping him became even easier. Being needed filled hours that grief had emptied. Ryan called, and I had somewhere to go. He needed money, and I still had a purpose. I told myself I was protecting my only son. In truth, I was also protecting myself from a silent house. That realization hurt more than his demand that I confess. Ryan had chosen me because 36 years of experience had taught him that Dad eventually said yes. The amounts changed. The excuses changed. The lesson never did. If Ryan waited long enough, sounded frightened enough, or reminded me that family came first, I would step between him and the ground. This time, the ground had a name. Walter Briggs was lying in a hospital because Lauren had struck him. Ryan had seen my freedom as another family resource he could spend. I opened the drawer beside the refrigerator. Inside was a list of accounts and services I had quietly maintained for him. Roadside assistance, a storage unit he had needed for 1 month, 2 years earlier, and an insurance add-on covering equipment he used for work. His name was also listed as my emergency contact. I canceled the services one by one. Then I replaced his name with my sister, Nancy. I felt the loss. The front door still carried one more problem. Ryan had kept a key since college. He used it without calling because I had always allowed it. That privilege had made his arrival after the collision possible. I called a locksmith. He came that afternoon carrying a small toolbox and changed both exterior cylinders in less than 20 minutes. There was no confrontation, no speech, and no satisfying sound of revenge. There was only an old brass key that no longer opened anything. As the locksmith packed his tools, Nancy called. "Ryan says you're confused," she said carefully. "He told me you misunderstood something involving Lauren and your truck." The speed of it chilled me. Ryan was not merely defending his police report. He was building a second wall around the lie, using my age and grief as the bricks. "Did he tell you a man was hit?" I asked. Silence. "No." "Did he tell you Lauren admitted driving?" "No." I explained only what I could verify. When I finished, Nancy's voice had changed. "What do you want me to do? Don't argue with him for me. If he says I'm confused, ask him for a specific example. If he asks you to pressure me, tell him to speak through his attorney. Tom, he's your son. I know. That's why this hurts." I kept the old key, proof that the door had once been open. Diane's warning returned to me. "Remember, you are allowed to protect yourself too." I had once thought she meant taking a vacation or sleeping more. Sitting alone beneath the kitchen light, I finally understood. Protecting myself did not mean destroying Ryan. It meant refusing to disappear so he could remain comfortable. I could love my son without financing his emergencies, lending him my name, or sacrificing my freedom. The next time Ryan reached for the father who always softened his landing, he would discover that man had finally stepped aside. And for the first time in his life, nothing stood between him and the consequences coming toward him. 3 days passed before the investigator called again. His name was Caleb Morgan, and he asked me to come to the station as the owner of the truck and a witness, not as a detective. That distinction mattered. Morgan placed a map on the table. A red mark showed where Walter had been struck. The pharmacy footage showed my pickup traveling west at 11:18. The cloud recording marked the impact 94 seconds later. At 11:21, the same truck appeared outside the printing company with damage visible on the passenger side. It slowed, but did not stop. "That confirms Lauren continued away from Walter," Morgan said. He placed a transcript beside the map. The anonymous 911 call had been made at 11:20. She sounded breathless and disconnected when the operator asked for her name. Phone records later confirmed the call came from Lauren's device. The next document showed Ryan's first call to police at 11:46. He claimed I had contacted him from home moments earlier and confessed. My home telephone records showed no outgoing call. My personal cell had remained in a secure locker during the undercover operation. Ryan's story required a conversation that had never happened on any device either of us used. "Do you recognize this sedan? It resembles Ryan's car." A second camera captured the plate 4 minutes later. It was Ryan's sedan. The timestamp read 11:31, 13 minutes after the collision. He told me he never went near the scene. He told us Lauren reached their house before calling him. Their home is 25 minutes away in the opposite direction. Morgan traced the route with one finger. His car could not have traveled from their house to this location within the timeline he gave us. I felt something cold settle beneath my ribs. Ryan had known the road was dark because he had been there. That still did not prove what he saw or did, but his lie was no longer protecting only Lauren's driving. It was hiding his own movements. Morgan showed me another camera angle. Ryan's sedan entered the area, disappeared beyond the reach of the camera, then emerged 6 minutes later heading east. Walter is recovering. His memory is incomplete, so we aren't building the case around it. He remembers a woman near him with a phone. He also remembers headlights arriving afterward and a man's voice. Did he recognize Ryan? No, he could not see the man's face. Morgan then played the voicemail Ryan had left me. Lauren is terrified, and confused people can make everything worse. He followed it with the police recording in which Ryan described me as frightened, disoriented, and unable to remember exactly where the collision occurred. My son had begun portraying me as mentally unreliable before speaking to me. "Has he ever raised concerns about your memory before?" Morgan asked. "Never." "Medical diagnosis?" "None." "Family members who believe you're impaired?" "My sister says Ryan contacted her after I refused to cooperate. He told her I was confused, but gave no example." Morgan wrote that down. Next came my exterior camera footage. Ryan approached the truck after asking for the keys, examined the dashboard, and tested the locked door. "You never told him the memory card was missing?" "No." Yet he looked directly at the camera housing. Morgan added the image to the line of documents. The pattern was becoming visible. Ryan had named me before asking for my agreement. He knew details about the road he claimed never to have visited. His car had been recorded nearby. He tried to recover the vehicle, inspected the camera, and began telling relatives my memory was failing. Each fact alone had an innocent explanation. Together they told a different story. Before I left, Morgan showed me one final still photograph from a loading dock camera farther along the road. It had been enhanced, but not enough to invent what was not there. Ryan's sedan was parked on the shoulder. My pickup stood several yards ahead. Between the two vehicles, a figure was visible beside the road. "Is that Walter?" I asked. "We believe so." "And Ryan?" Morgan pointed to a second figure near the sedan. The face was unclear, but the height and clothing matched what Ryan wore when he entered my kitchen. "We need the original file analyzed before drawing conclusions," Morgan said. But his vehicle did not merely pass through. It stopped. I stared at the image. For 3 days I had tried to leave room for the possibility that Ryan joined the cover-up after Lauren came home. That possibility was disappearing. If the footage was authentic, my son had stood within yards of an injured man, then driven to my house and selected me as the solution. Morgan returned the photograph to the folder. "Do not confront him. We need to know what happened during those 6 minutes." I walked back through the public lobby carrying nothing. Outside, the afternoon sun was bright enough to make the previous night's darkness feel impossible. Ryan's lie had once looked simple: place his father behind the wheel. Now every new fact revealed another layer beneath it. Lauren had caused the collision, but whatever happened after she stopped running had Ryan's fingerprints all over it. The answer came the following morning. At the station once again, Morgan played the restored loading dock video. In it, my truck stopped on the shoulder. She climbed out, ran toward Walter, and knelt beside him with her phone in her hand. Ryan's sedan pulled in behind my truck. He walked directly to Walter, stood over him, and bent down long enough to see that he was moving. Ryan looked at its damaged passenger side, then at the dash camera behind the windshield. Without calling for help, he took Lauren by the arm and followed her as she drove my truck away. 6 minutes after arriving, both vehicles disappeared. Walter remained alone on the pavement. I watched the clip twice. Ryan had not made a frightened decision based on Lauren's description. He had seen Walter with his own eyes. Lauren had also changed her account through her attorney. She admitted driving, striking Walter, and calling 911. She said Ryan arrived after she called him in panic. According to her statement, Ryan inspected Walter, checked the truck, and told her that remaining at the scene would destroy her career. He instructed her to drive to my house while he contacted police first. I froze. She also admitted removing the dash camera card before they came inside. Ryan had taken it from her afterward. Morgan told me not to contact either of them. I agreed. Then Ryan appeared at my house that afternoon. He knocked because his old key no longer worked. I opened the door, but did not invite him inside. Then he spoke. "Lauren is blaming everything on me. Were you at the scene?" He glanced toward the porch camera. "Can we talk somewhere else? Answer me. Her attorney is trying to protect her. Were you at the scene?" Ryan rubbed both hands over his face. "Yes." The word was barely audible. "Did you see Walter? I saw a man on the road. Was he alive?" "He was moving." My son had known. Every remaining excuse collapsed in those 3 words. "Why did you leave him?" I asked. "The ambulance was coming." "You didn't know how long it would take." Lauren was hysterical. Walter was bleeding. Ryan's voice rose. What was I supposed to do? Stand there and watch everything we'd built disappear? There it was. Not confusion, not shock. Calculation. He told me their mortgage was 3 months behind. Lauren's promotion included a large raise. A hit-and-run charge would cost her the position, their house, and perhaps their marriage. He had reached the road and seen their future collapsing. Then he looked for something else to place beneath it. So you chose me, I said. Ryan lowered his voice. I thought you could handle it. Prison? You have no record. We would have hired the best lawyer. You told police I confessed before you asked me. I needed time. You stole my time. You put my name into a crime, while I still believed you were coming to me for help. He stepped closer. I can fix this. I'll tell them Lauren was driving if you say you aren't certain. I went to the scene. Then the obstruction accusation weakens, and we keep this inside the family. I studied him. Even now, he was not offering the truth. He was negotiating which portion of the lie I should carry. Walter is part of this family now, I said. Ryan frowned. What does that mean? It means every decision we make has to include the man you left in the road. Dad, you're choosing a stranger over your son. No, you chose yourself over both of us. His face changed. Anger gave way to something closer to fear. If you testify, I could lose my license, my business, everything. That is what Lauren said about her career when she asked for my freedom. You can stop this. No, Ryan. I can only stop saving you from it. For years, those words would have broken me. That afternoon, they made me feel steady. Ryan looked past me into the house, perhaps expecting Diane's memory to pull me back into the old pattern. Mom would never do this to me, he said. The cruelty of using her name surprised even him. I felt it, but I did not move. Your mother warned me this day would come. He stared at me. She said, if I caught you every time you fell, you would forget the ground existed. I closed the door while he was still searching for an answer. Through the window, I watched him remain on the porch beneath the camera. He had come hoping to trade one partial truth for another lie. He left knowing that the father he had selected as his escape route was about to become the witness he could not silence. Ryan did not withdraw his story after leaving my porch. 2 days later, his attorney challenged the sealed certification of my whereabouts, arguing that law enforcement might be protecting one of its own. The filing demanded supporting records and suggested that my age, grief, and possible confusion made my account unreliable. Brooks called me into the task force office that afternoon. Commander Price and the county attorney were waiting in the same windowless room. This time, the folder on the table required my signature. Ryan's defense is forcing the issue, Price said. The prosecutor can oppose the request, but a simple assurance from this office may no longer be enough. What happens to the operation? I asked. Price folded his hands. If your real identity enters the court record, even under seal, we have to assume it may eventually leak. You would be removed from field contact immediately. 18 months of work reduced to 1 sentence. I looked at the authorization form. If I signed, the prosecutor could disclose that I was a sworn detective working at a verified location when Walter was struck. I picked up the pen. Before I sign, I want the witnesses moved as soon as it can be done safely. Price agreed. And no one gives me special treatment because I carry a badge. The attorney nodded. The disclosure will contain only what any defendant is entitled to receive. I signed my name. My hand did not shake, but something inside me went quiet. The document protected me from Ryan's accusation by sacrificing the identity that had allowed me to keep doing the work I loved. 3 days later, the limited disclosure reached the prosecutor and Ryan's attorney. It stated that Thomas Mercer remained an active, sworn detective, that I had been performing authorized duty under supervision at the time of the collision, and that multiple independent records placed me 40 miles from Walter. No operational address appeared. No undercover name was revealed, but the central fact could no longer be challenged honestly. I had not been driving my truck. Ryan called. "You're still a cop?" he asked. "Yes. Since when?" "Since before you were born. You told me you retired. I told you I stepped away from my old position. You never asked what came next." Silence. Then his voice sharpened. So you sat there that night knowing you could prove I was lying? I sat there listening to my son ask me to confess to a crime. You could have warned me. Would knowing my job have made you help Walter? He did not answer. Would it have stopped you from reporting my name before speaking to me? Then the secret was not the problem, Ryan. It only prevented your lie from succeeding. His breathing changed. I could almost hear him reviewing every message, every camera, and every statement he had made while believing I was an old man who no longer understood investigations. What else do they know? He asked. Speak to your attorney. I'm asking my father. Your father already gave you an opportunity to tell the truth. He lowered his voice. You destroyed your own operation just to make sure I went down. No. You forced me to choose between protecting my name and protecting your lie. Same thing. Only to someone who believes my life belongs to him. Ryan ended the call. The following morning, Price removed me from field duty. The warehouse operation would continue without me under a revised plan, but Tom Ward was finished. I turned in the transmitter, the prepaid phone, and the keys to a vehicle registered under a name that no longer belonged to anyone. Brooks found me emptying the small locker I had used for 18 months. You did the right thing, she said. That doesn't make it free. She nodded because she understood. I had not lost the badge, but I had lost the work that made my age feel like an advantage instead of an ending. Ryan believed older people had less future to protect. His lie had already taken part of mine. Yet, as I left the building, I felt no regret about choosing my own name. For decades, I had taught my son that his future mattered enough for me to absorb the cost. This time, I had finally taught him something different. My life was not the empty space beneath his consequences. And when the formal hearing began, Ryan would have to face a father he could no longer describe as confused, retired, or powerless. The formal hearing began 6 weeks after the night Ryan placed my keys on the table. By then, Lauren had accepted responsibility for driving, leaving the scene, and helping conceal evidence. Ryan refused every offer that required him to admit he had used my name. He insisted the false report began with a telephone confession from me, and claimed Lauren changed her story to protect herself. That left the court with one question beneath all the others. Which version could survive the evidence? Morgan testified first. He built the night minute by minute. At 11:18, the pharmacy camera recorded my truck heading west with Lauren driving. 94 seconds later, the cloud camera detected the impact. At 11:20, Lauren called 911. At 11:21, the printing company camera recorded the damaged truck leaving the area. At 11:31, Ryan's sedan arrived. The loading dock video showed him approach Walter, inspect the truck, and leave 6 minutes later. At 11:46, Ryan called police and named me as the driver. At 12:17, my exterior camera recorded both of them arriving at my house. Lauren then took the stand. She admitted looking down at a message before Walter entered the road. She admitted calling 911, leaving before help arrived, and calling Ryan. When he reached the scene, she wanted to wait for the ambulance. Ryan told her that staying would end her career. He noticed the dash camera, ordered her to remove its card, and told her to take my truck to my house. Whose idea was it to identify Thomas Mercer as the driver? Lauren looked toward Ryan. His. Did Mr. Mercer agree before Ryan contacted police? No, we hadn't spoken to him yet. Ryan's attorney attacked her motive. Lauren did not argue. I lied because I was afraid, she said. Then I kept lying because Ryan gave me someone else to blame. Neither reason makes it less wrong. The prosecutor called me next. For the first time in a public courtroom, I said that I remained an active detective. Ryan looked at me as I said, I was on duty 40 miles from the collision that night. A task force records officer confirmed the timeline through sealed attendance logs, controlled communications, and surveillance records. No source was exposed. Yet there was no possible way I had driven my truck at 11:19. Then came the part Ryan had believed I would soften. What did your son ask you to do when he arrived at your home? He asked me to tell police I had been driving. Did you agree? No. Had you spoken to him before he reported your confession? No. The prosecutor showed Ryan's messages on a screen. Stick to what we discussed. Don't destroy Lauren's life over one mistake. He asked whether those words referred to any agreement. They did not. They referred to the story Ryan presented after he had already used my name. My exterior camera footage followed. It showed Ryan returning for the keys, approaching the truck, examining the camera housing, and testing the door. The forensic technician testified that the physical memory card had been removed and never recovered. Cloud logs showed no remote deletion because Ryan had not known the second recording existed. Finally, the prosecutor played Ryan's voicemail describing me as confused. He compared it with Ryan's earlier police report, which called me frightened, disoriented, and uncertain. Before this incident, had Ryan ever expressed concern about your memory? No. Have you been diagnosed with any condition affecting it? No. Why do you believe he began saying this? Ryan's attorney objected, and the judge sustained it. I appreciated the ruling. My beliefs were not evidence, Ryan's actions were. During cross-examination, his attorney asked whether I loved my son. Yes. Would you do anything to protect him? I looked at Ryan. For most of his life, the honest answer would have been yes. I would do anything that helped him become honest. I will not help him escape the truth. The attorney asked whether anger over losing my undercover assignment had influenced my testimony. My testimony cost me that assignment. Ryan's decisions caused the cost. He tried to suggest my grief over Diane made me resent Ryan's marriage. I answered every question with facts and refused every invitation to turn the hearing into a family argument. During a recess, Ryan approached with his lawyer beside him. "Dad," he said. One word, carrying the weight of every time I had rescued him. His attorney touched his arm, warning him not to continue. Ryan ignored him. "You can still say I misunderstood you." I held his gaze. "You understood me perfectly. You simply believed my answer would eventually change." Back inside, the judge reviewed the evidence. No single video showed every act. No witness heard every conversation. But the combined record established probable cause that Ryan knowingly made a false report, tampered with evidence, attempted to influence a witness, and participated in leaving Walter without assistance. The case would proceed. When the judge finished, an officer moved beside Ryan. My son turned toward me. Beneath the fear in his face was the old expectation that I would stand, interrupt, offer money, change a sentence, or find a door everyone else had missed. I remained seated. I did not celebrate. I did not ask for a harsher punishment. I simply refused to lie. Ryan was escorted through the side door, still looking back at me. For 36 years, he had trusted me to stand between him and the ground. That morning, the ground finally reached him, not because I pushed him, but because I stopped holding him above it. Consequences never arrived, all at once. Lauren pleaded guilty to leaving the scene and evidence-related charges. The senior living company removed her from public events before accepting her resignation. When prosecutors completed the evidence review, Ryan accepted responsibility for making a false report, destroying the memory card, and trying to influence my testimony. His real estate license was suspended, pending professional review. One evening, he called me from his attorney's office. "Dad, I need help." "What kind?" I asked. "My lawyer needs another retainer. I can repay you after this settles." "I know you need help, Ryan. I'm not paying it." "So you're going to let me drown?" "No. I'm letting you pay your own bill, then act like my father." I finally am. A month later, Walter asked to meet me. He was thinner than I expected and walked with a cane, but his voice was steady. Being hit isn't what I remember most. I waited. I remember hearing the engines leave. He had lain on wet pavement, unable to understand why two vehicles were moving away instead of one person staying beside him. "I'm sorry," I said. Walter nodded. 3 days later, Ryan asked to meet at a small cafe. Then he said, "Lauren ruined everything." I reached for my coat. "Dad, wait. You asked me here to apologize, but your first sentence gave the blame away. She was driving, and you saw Walter alive. You used my name. Those were your decisions." Ryan lowered his eyes. "I don't know how to do this." That sounded true, so I sat again. He admitted their mortgage was crushing them, and that fear had narrowed his thoughts to Lauren's career, their house, and himself. "Then I thought about you," he said. "Your record was clean. Your house was paid off. I thought you could handle it. Fear explains why you wanted an escape. It does not explain why you decided I should pay for it. Ryan stared into his untouched coffee. I thought, because you loved me, you'd let me. That sentence contained our entire history. I took a breath. I did not make you lie or leave Walter, but I spent years teaching you that Dad would soften every landing. That part belongs to me. What happens now? That depends on what kind of relationship you're asking for. I gave him the terms. No money for emergencies, he created. No spare key. No arriving without permission. No telling relatives I was confused when I disagreed with him. No forgiveness on a schedule designed to make him comfortable. How do I prove I've changed? You don't prove it in one conversation. You live differently long enough for people to see it. Nearly 3 months passed before he called again. I chose Lauren's career over Walter's life and your freedom, he said. No excuse followed. I knew Walter was hurt. I still drove away, lied to police, and came to your house expecting you to save me. For the first time, Ryan spoke without handing part of his guilt to someone else. I did not forgive everything that morning. Trust does not return because an apology sounds sincere. But I agreed to meet him for coffee the following Sunday. It was not a restored relationship. It was a door opened 1 inch. My own life changed too. I could no longer work undercover, so Brooks moved me into investigative training. I taught younger detectives to notice the details people reveal when they believe no one important is watching. At home, I accepted invitations I once declined because Ryan might need me. I reconnected with friends and moved Diane's chair closer to the window. The room did not forget her. It simply became mine again. I repaired the pickup and sold it. When the salesman handed me the keys to a modest replacement, I carried them home and placed them on the kitchen table. The first keys in this story had been pushed toward me with a lie attached. These were different. I had chosen them myself. Lauren once said an older widower had nothing left to lose. She was wrong. I still had my name, my work, my home, my choices, and a future that did not begin with someone else needing something from me. Loving your family should never require losing yourself. Help people move toward honesty, but never become a shield that allows deception to survive. Forgiveness may follow responsibility. It should never replace it.